And joining us now is Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard and Dr. Ron Samarian, Chief of Psychiatry at Royal Oak Beaumont. Sheriff Bouchard, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and Doctor, you as well. We're going to begin with you, Sheriff. Through the pandemic, we haven't seen these types of mass shooting incidents, and now 2 in a week. What's the concern amongst law enforcement as we emerge from this pandemic?
Well, we've had a lot of uptick in violence in a lot of different kinds of settings. I think now people are getting out in bigger crowds and going to different venues like that, and that could be some of the attribution of this. But we've seen people quicker to violence in a variety of settings: domestic violence, different road rage situations we've seen, and it goes from 0 to 10 very, very quickly. As you know, we were at Clawson with the Clawson police, where on this past weekend on Sunday, domestic situation escalated into a homicide. So we're seeing that in a variety of situations. People, maybe it's the pent up thing, and I'm sure Doc can speak to it better, but the anxiety, the tension of the moment, the pent up being quarantined, and all the kinds of fears and anxieties, depression that comes from this whole situation evidence itself, at least in our world, much more quickly to violence and anger.
All right, yes, Sheriff Bouchard, and to you, Dr. Samarian, among those same lines, we are seeing emotions on high. Of course, these tragedies, watching them play out as we have, unfortunately, enough times, creating a lot of anxiety for people. What can we keep in mind?
Well, we've seen this before the pandemic. We see it during the pandemic, and unfortunately, we'll probably see it after things lighten up. In both these recent cases, what we see, and historically what we see, is a culmination of rage and fear and shame, with that being displaced onto innocent victims with lethal means. And it's, as the sheriff said, it's possible that the pandemic and the restrictions have added to that. We can't measure that right now. I think we have to keep in mind that, as law enforcement has always said, be mindful of people that are getting angry, be mindful of your friends and relatives that are expressing stress and rage. And I think the means to lethal force is something that we have to take a very close look and careful look at.
Well, and Sheriff, before we wrap up, people are so focused on COVID. Are there any important reminders that we need for people to stay safe? As the doctor said, pay attention to your family members and your friends and their feelings.
Absolutely. We've seen a big increase in all sectors, including our own, which is part of why our peer-to-peer support is very important, where we're kind of checking on each other, watching each other, talking to each other. And the same is true for everybody, friends and family. Reach out, look for those signs and symptoms of anger, depression, suicide tendencies. Those are all up pretty dramatically. Overdoses are up, probably from self-medication. So look after each other. And if you see something beginning to escalate, remove yourself as quickly as possible. Don't engage, call some professional help, get some folks involved that can maybe help de-escalate, get that person some help, treatment, or support.
All right, Sheriff Bouchard, Dr. Samarian, thank you both for joining me this afternoon.
Sure thing.
And stay